Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. We will begin our open study session, which is the Recreation Master Plan. Mr. Haddad, would you like to come up and present?
So today,
That's all right.
so this evening, I've reached out to 3 of the 8 total bids for our Recreation Master Plan, and they have graciously showed up to give us kind of a brief description on how they would approach our master plan and go from there. So I would like to invite whoever would like to start. We'd kind of like to start first to kind of give their approach to our master plan. Please, come on up.
And you're with what company? McKenna?
With McKenna and Associates, right?
Good evening, council members, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight on our proposal for a Park and Recreation Partnership. My name is Laura Ha. I'm a senior principal planner with McKenna and the designated project director for the Dearborn Heights Park and Recreation Master Plan. Joining me this evening is Natalie Bond. She is designated as the project manager in the proposal. Natalie and I thoroughly enjoy working on park and recreation plans across the state of Michigan. At your seats this evening are a couple example plans, including the City of Birmingham that was recently done, the City of Garden City, and the City of Southfield. There's a couple copies circulating, and there were also copies enclosed with our original proposal. Other plans, park and rec plans that we have worked on recently include the City of Kalamazoo, the Village of Three Oaks, the Village of Lake Orion, Hamburg Township, Lyon Township, and Harper Woods. And right now, Natalie and I are working on the City of Mount Pleasant's Park and Recreation Master Plan and the City of Rochester. In fact, Natalie is actually going to be accepting an award tomorrow at the Michigan Association of Planning for her work in sustainability planning in Oshtemo Township's Park and Rec Plan for last year in West Michigan. As outlined in our proposal, our approach consists of 6 key action steps that will satisfy the MDNR guidelines. This includes 7 meetings, 1 day of focus groups, and of those 7 meetings, 3 are open public meetings. As we know from our vast experience in park and recreation planning in other communities, MDNR does prefer to see the public engagement component exceeded. This is a critical piece for the state. And we have outlined on page 19 of our proposal some additional options for public engagement should the city be interested. That includes a community-wide survey and a Dearborn Heights field day. We've experienced a lot of success by going out into the community, whether it be at a farmer's market or an event in the park, and going to the public and getting their feedback rather than asking them to participate in a standard meeting at City Hall. We're happy to discuss any aspects of the proposal this evening, and if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you again.
Sure.
Councilman Abdullah?
I just want to clarify for yourselves, and I think for the others that will be presenting tonight, we don't have the plans that you guys have. I know you sent it to the Recreation Director, but as a council, we've not had a chance to receive them or review them. So if you don't mind, if you could give us like at least an abbreviation of what's in the plan that was emailed or sent to the Recreation Director.
Sure. Well, for the City of Birmingham, I would say that was a very comprehensive plan that brought together a lot of diverse stakeholders in the community. They have a lot of different athletic groups that all had different ideas for the parks, and their park system is really bisected through Woodward, and the connection between the parks and the neighborhoods was one of the key concepts that the plan strove to accomplish. And we had a great deal of success in going to the farmers market in Birmingham and really reaching out to the families and the park users directly. Also, in the city of Kalamazoo, we did a number of field days at parks during the summer, at different parks in various neighborhoods, and that generated a lot of positive outreach and feedback, and really drilling down into what the residents and members of the community need in their area. I should also mention that the City of Southfield plan that's circulating with you tonight, that included a capital improvement plan. We're seeing more and more of that intertwined with park and recreation planning, so not just a action plan, but a targeted capital improvement plan to really guide the city's budget moving forward. That's something that we implement in our plans and develop quite thoroughly.
Councilman Abdullah?
So, two questions I have for you. What's your vision for Dearborn Heights specifically? Because I think, in my opinion, Dearborn Heights is a very unique city in a positive way. What's your vision for Dearborn Heights specifically as far as what you plan on doing? And then the second question, the follow-up question that I have is, why would we select you, without obviously having to talk about somebody else, but why yourselves and not somebody else? So basically, obviously, clearly at this point, we're interviewing 3 people. Mm-hmm. So one of you guys is going to be selected, guys, gals, etc. So with that in mind, why would we select you and not somebody else? Sell me on this, is basically what I'm saying.
Well, without going through the public engagement component first, I think we're really seeing across Michigan and the nation that Parks and Rec are an integral part of quality of life and really the foundation for the neighborhood. And you have amazing amenities here, especially with Hines Park. I mean, that is a jewel of the region. And so being able to link to that and really capitalize on the assets that you have would be, the cornerstone going forward. Our park and rec plans, it's something that we truly enjoy doing because it involves working with people directly. You get to meet wonderful people and really understand how minor and large impacts to their park and recreation system can positively impact their life. We also have a lot of success in our plans in that they're action-driven. So this positions the city well moving forward to apply for grants and other funding in order to actually implement the capital improvement plan and make those visions a reality.
Councilwoman Hicks Clayton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our current recreation plan from 2013, which is a 5-year plan, expired in 2018, correct? This is probably for our recreation director. What percentage of that would you say was brought to fruition?
Like I said at our last council meeting, I thought there was 75, I think I said 75 to 85% of it was completed.
Okay. My follow-up question is, my concern from polling and working with our youth is our youth leaves our community. They go elsewhere, as you know.
Agreed.
Okay, so that piece and that component needs to be improved on to give families reason to recreate here and not go elsewhere. That needs to be evaluated. What I'd like to hear from all of who the 3 we're interviewing or talking to tonight is I want to hear your success story, in particular with ADA accessibility, because that's a concern, okay? That includes parks and playgrounds, the green infrastructure, and placemaking concepts. And in particular, I want us to talk about Warren Valley Golf Course if we can. Please.
Okay. So, well, I didn't, were you addressing to me or?
Well, I guess since you're at the podium, you're familiar, you talked about assets. Warren Valley Golf Course is newly acquired. I think we can do more with it. I'd like to hear some ideas. I'm in particular with placemaking and bringing all the stakeholders to the table. That includes your public schools, your organizations, your neighborhood groups. We need to talk about building a community from the inside out and giving our families a reason to recreate here and not leave our community to do so. And that's all ages, by the way, which is why I threw in the ADA accessibility issue.
You raise a wonderful point. Park and recreation planning is meant to be an inclusive process from young toddlers at the playground all the way to seniors. Parks generate not just recreation, but improvements to mental health, sense of community, social gathering. There's a wide range of benefits from having quality parks in our system.
Can you talk a little bit about Warren Valley Golf Course for us? Because I know, like, when I think about it, I have a vision. I'm sure everybody at this table has some vision for it, as well as members of our community. And I fully agree we need to have more citizen engagement. The focus groups, the work groups, because again, all of our community members, you're all stakeholders. This is your community, these are your parks, including that golf course. So I'd like to, can you elaborate for us a little bit? Because it's been, now, how long has that been? We purchased it in 2017. We're at a two-year mark, is that correct, going in October?
Oh, about 1 year.
We closed last
Okay.
year.
Okay,
It's been about a year from when
I was thinking of discussions in 2017 then. Okay.
Well, I did meet with Eric over there last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure exactly when, but we did go through some. The main focus is the improvement of the facility first, from the banquet and clubhouse facilities to the actual golf course and things that need to be improved. So that's probably the top of the list first. Eric's going to be compiling a priority list of what needs to be done and with the estimated costs, and he's supposed to be getting that to me as soon as he gets it all completed. So with that being said, that's our first step there, is assessing the problems, I guess you can say, the things that need to be fixed, and upgrading that stuff first. And then from there on, I would like to see more banquets there, more things for the community. A lot of different things can be done there. So I honestly think it's a blank slate, and we can try everything, and we don't know until we try to see if it works.
And Director, do you plan to have focus groups and visioning sessions with the community members?
Well, yeah, that is with the master plan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, if I might, it's become apparent to me, and it's not something that I grew up with, but I'm starting to recognize that a lot of young people are into these games, for lack of a better word, and that this is taking off. In fact, Ohio State University is considering, it's almost like a varsity sport. And two employees at Dearborn Heights, their kids are into these conventions, or whatever you want to call them, that meets, and they compete in scoring on these games. So video games are becoming something that I was never aware of how extensive it is. Have you run into this in other communities? And I think this is something that we need to satisfy, because I'm being told like the kids are doing it a lot.
I would say that in other communities, we've had success in creating placemaking spaces where youth can gather in an area and use their mobile devices. And even though they may still be engaged with their device individually, collectively, they are together in a shared space. And then that fosters a sense of community.
I think we have to somehow make an input into that group, because it's part of recreation. It's expanding and growing very quickly. I think it's here now to stay, and we offer, as far as I know, 0 services, and I think that's something that ought to be built into the plan.
Okay, wonderful.
Question.
Councilman Constant?
Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. A couple questions. Number one, activities for our young people. Our north end of our city particularly is more and more landlocked and fewer areas available for parks. There's a lot of expansion of businesses on Ford Road, a lot of expansion of businesses on Warren, where the soccer fields that I used to use when I coached soccer over at, where now there's an athletic center, are no longer available. What do you see as far as neighborhood parks and then regional parks and getting more places where the young people can have activities?
Well, we'd certainly need to do an analysis of the parkland available and the amenities in those parks to kind of determine the classification of the parks and their service radii. But what we're also seeing is that individuals need a park within 10 minutes a walk from their home. And that is one of the analyses that we would perform as part of this master plan.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then there's a real problem in a lot of our parks with trash being left, vandalism, things like that. So as far as lighting and so forth, is that something the plan would address?
Yes, we're certainly happy to address those concerns, the environmental stewardship and crime prevention, vandalism and such.
Security. And then soccer's really expanding in Dearborn Heights and generally. Anything in the plan regarding, areas to use as soccer fields?
That would come out of the analysis and the public engagement. Right now, it would not be factual comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Due to time restrictions, we're going to ask for the next one to come up for 15 minutes. Who is next to present?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and let us know what company you're with. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Steve Zadzik. I'm a landscape architect with Fleece and Vandenbrink.
What's the name of the company, I'm sorry?
Fleece and Vandenbrink Engineering. We have an office in Farmington Hills. I'm out of our Grand Rapids office because the project manager who would be working on this is representing a client over on the other side of the state at a grant meeting tonight. And that's one of the things that we like to look at as a recreation plan. A 5-year plan is a tool that the DNR requires a community to have in order to become eligible for grants. Now, the DNR state mission has got some really incredible opportunities for acquisition and improvement grants. And I'm under the understanding that you've got a couple of projects in the city right now that may be grant eligible, and one of the requirements before state monies can be allocated to any local government is a plan on file with the DNR. Most of these
Can you tell us what plans those are?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell us what plans those are? The two you mentioned? You said there's two.
Are you talking about the grant programs?
Yeah, you said there's a couple in the process right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure what you've got underway right now at this moment. I think there was a roofing issue or something that I stumbled across online, but the grant programs that the DNR administers are for property acquisition. They've got passport grants that could include maintenance. There's the trust fund for programming on existing properties. And I'll play into that because why I'm here tonight is to talk about the plan, the 5-year plan update, and what that can serve as in way of a tool for the city. We've done a lot of plans. I mean, dozens. I don't want to say hundreds because I might be exaggerating, but the one commonality in these plans is that when a community has this plan, it's the product of a lot of input, a lot of community engagement. Stakeholders like to have a say. We can come up with questionnaires. We can kind of do a barefoot meeting and find out what the community wants. Now, once we have these meetings and talk about the wants and the goals and the dreams, we like to go out and see what the community has. Sometimes we'll be doing that simultaneously, but we don't want to throw a blanket on anybody's wishes. But when we get down to the brass tacks and start looking at the analysis of what the community wants, what they have, what some of the national and state standards are for recreation facilities. For instance, if somebody wants shuffleboard courts and 27 people want shuffleboard courts and we do an inventory and you find you've already got 72 shuffleboard courts, we're not going to put shuffleboard courts as one of the action items. We might want to look at how we can publicize these shuffleboard courts a little bit more, and that can be an action item in the plan. So once we get into the plan and we look at what the community wants, what they have, we can set some goals. And that's where the DNR starts to look at this plan and they actually use it to justify grant requests. For instance, we've put together a plan for Lakeshore community, and in that plan they decided they wanted to have a way to get boats into the downtown. Anybody can put it in a marina, but there's no docks at the end of the main street. So one of the items we put in our action plan, or our goals, and I think the section was called action plan, it was in the community of Saugatuck. Goals and objection, recommend actions, and rationale, capital improvement schedule, was a small dock at the end of Main Street. So when we had the opportunity, we put a grant into the state, they loved it, and we got the community whatever the money was to build this dock downtown, and we had a ribbon cutting, and there were people waiting to get on their boats on it. It was great. And when we look at these, why we're doing this, the DNR has a huge staff of people in Lansing whose job is to give away money. Now, a lot of this money has been amassed through natural resources leases. Back in 1988, we voted on the Natural Resource Trust Fund, and a portion of all natural resource extraction, forestry that happens on state lands, part of that profit has to go into this pool for the State Trust Fund. That money is ours to use on recreation opportunities. There's other programs that come out of state park admission fees and whatever, and there's these people in Lansing who I've worked with for years. They exist to distribute that to communities that have a justifiable need, a plan, an idea. It's like if our kid comes up to us and said, "Dad, I want $50. For what? Give me a good idea. I'll give them $50, maybe. But if they just want $50 to go blow, we're not going to give it to them. So when we look at the recreation plan as a tool, it meets the state requirements, and we can use it to back up our requests to enhance what we have. And we've already decided what we want to do to enhance it through the community engagement, through all the steps that we've talked about. That's kind of like the non-touchy-feely reason that we do these plans. Plans can and are a living, breathing document that document where the community wants to be and where they are, what they have, and how to get there. They ask us to update them every 5 years because things change. Goals change. Who would have thought pickleball was going to be a thing 20 years ago? Yeah. We're converting tennis courts all over the state into pickleball courts. And that's a hot button item when we look at these grant applications. Excuse me if I keep on going back to the grants, but that's where the leverage really exists on these things. Green infrastructure, that's a plus. You get points for that on your grant application. Universal access, ADA accessibility, not only is that the law, that's just smart, and the less universally accessible that a site is built into, the less apt it is to, get a high score on a grant. So those are the kind of reasons about why a plan is a necessary tool. We've done a lot of these. We've gotten a lot of grants for our communities, and the reason that I should do this rather than any of these other people in this room, between 1970 and 1986, I lived in this city, graduated from Crestwood High School, used to hang out at Canfield in the parking lot, used to go ice skating, when the towers, we had the rockets and over here at Van Houten Park, I think even before it was Van Houten Park.
Municipal.
That's what it was,
I grew up going to that park.
So that's why Rick's not here tonight and I'm here, because this is my hometown. I grew up here. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you.
Thank you. Councilman Abdullah.
Got a question. So give me some of the successful cities that you've done a master plan in. When I say successful, I don't mean in terms of a city being successful master plans that you've done in cities near us here. Your company has. And the second question is,
Okay.
that's great that, it's great that you lived here. I think it's a plus, but it won't be the main determining factor. So with that being the case, I'll ask you the same question I asked somebody else. Why you and not the two other companies? Why your company specifically? So if you could answer those two questions for me, please.
Our company specifically, well, we've got a real depth of experience in coming up with these plans. Most of our work is through mid-Michigan. We've done some work in Royal Oak that hasn't made it to our plan yet, but that's more of an implementation and a grant situation that we're working on there as a sub-consultant. We've had some extremely good success with Caledonia Township and Caledonia Village. Those are over between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. We've gotten them, I think, 3 updates on their plan and several grants. We're an engineer of record in those communities. The one I was referring to earlier with the dock was the one I've got here, and I'll leave a copy with you. This is the one we submitted with our RFP. City of Saugatuck, we have had a heck of a lot of experience and luck in securing grants for that community. And
What about local here, close to our area?
in the Metro Detroit area, we haven't. We're working with some communities as engineer of record, but as far as a recreation plan, nothing in Wayne County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further question?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Constant?
Thank you. The name of your company again, because
Fleece and Vandenbrink. It's Larry Fleece, F-L-E-I-S, and Steve Vandenbrink, V-A-N-D-E-N-B-R-I-N-K.
They're a well-recognized civil engineering firm. I mean, they're highly respected and are known in that area.
I'm a landscape architect with a firm. We've got 3 landscape architects and a few engineers that work in our enhancement group, and our job is to go to our municipal clients and try to get new municipal clients and give them a little bit more than water, sewer, road work. Really latch into some of the other amenities that communities can provide their residents.
And what cities, if any, in the Metro Detroit area have you done plans for?
Plans, recreation plans, this would be, to my knowledge, Rick would know more about it than I do because I'm actually his supervisor and he's been doing this for 15 years for Fleece and Vandenbrink. I'm not aware of any recreation plans we've done in Wayne County. I don't know. I can't say we haven't. If we have, I will email Brian that, but in my featured experience here for Rick, none. I did some for Rochester many years ago when I was working in Farmington Hills right out of college. Rochester Hills and Rochester did a joint plan years ago, but that wasn't Fleece and Vandenbrink.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wenzel?
You mentioned several times about grant money.
Yes, sir.
Are you experienced in getting grants or telling us how we should go about grants or what's available?
Yes, we are. Part of our recreation plan will have a section about what funds are available, what grant programs are out there. The big one, of course, is the Natural Resource Trust Fund. The beautiful thing about that is the acquisition end of that has unlimited funds. Now, we need to get matching funds, and there's ways to play that out with, I've gotten acquisition grants on an old sand mine. And this was a fun deal because our client was a sand mine company, and they had this land that they sand mined, and they couldn't sell it. The community wanted a place to build some soccer fields and some baseball fields, but they couldn't afford it. So at that point, our client was able to get a tax benefit by giving this land to the city, and the city was able to count the assessed value of that land as the match. So the city got the land, no money out of their pocket. Our client got rid of a piece of land that was no use to them and a tax burden, and we got an acquisition grant to do that. That wasn't shady. That was all legit. That's the kind of neat leverage that can be used at that state level. Now, the Natural Resource Trust Fund improvement grants, development grants, they have a limit, and I'm not sure what those are.
What can you do with that grant, Natural Resource Trust?
You can buy land for recreational purposes. You can develop land as a recreation, land that you already own. You can also update. There's certain grants, not the trust fund, but I believe it's the passport grant. It can be used for maintenance and repaving tennis courts, putting lights in baseball fields, security, access type things. So
Councilman, if I might, and all of you might need to be aware of this, it's come up a couple times, but maybe let me refresh everybody's memory. I think we're very close to getting the Army Corps of Engineers to put a retention basin at the old incinerator site. And one of the things that I've constantly talked with the Army Corps of Engineers is that after the retention site is built, it will not support a building or anything like that. But the Army Corps said that one of the things the community could do is turn that into a recreation site, that it would be available for a soccer field, some bleachers, but I think that I always felt that with this 5-year plan and building that into the plan, that would be the time to make an application for these grants, and we're getting near. So it's important that that be in the plan, and our intention as a city to want to develop that recreational. I'm not going to dictate as to what that should be, but I think that we need to all as a community see what it is that we would like over there and develop it.
When we talk about some of those plans and the goals and objectives, we like to leave them open-ended, specific enough so if we get an opportunity in the next 5 years to develop a vacant site or former industrial site into a recreational use,
Okay.
we have it in the plan.
Okay.
We don't have to say we want to use parcel number 3 and have 17 acres of soccer fields, but we say if we have, the community is able to purchase some vacant land should it come available, or even, land that's not vacant and do some demolition and restoration and utilize it as a recreational opportunity. If something like that's in the plan, then a grant application can be more easily approved if it meets the other things.
Councilman Bazey?
Okay, so you mentioned grants. I guess one of the question for you and for the other two companies, how many times were you successful in obtaining grants for the cities that you were representing?
I can't give you a number, but I won't be exaggerating when I say if we've done 50 recreation master plans, we've probably been successful in 40 grant applications. Not all those grant applications end up being realized for whatever reason, but this summer, for instance, we're wrapping up 3 grant projects. Stockbridge, one is a restroom pavilion in a city in the middle of Michigan near Lansing, Saranac, and there's one up north, Point Betsy recreation grant that actually just kicked off a couple weeks ago. So we're very successful in getting grants. That's, from a landscape architect standpoint, that's where the good stuff is. When the rubber meets the road and we get to have projects and go and see people recreating at these projects, that's why we do this.
Okay, thank you very much. We're at our limit.
Yeah,
Sure.
but for the other, just to be fair, for the other two companies, the previous one and the next one, I guess before we leave, we'd like to find out, if you guys are experienced with the same thing as he mentioned with grants.
You are, okay.
So just to be fair,
They say that.
we can save it till the end.
Okay, sir, you're next. Oh, no, it's your time now. Thank you.
Hi, it's nice to see you all again. I'm Chip Smith from Wade Trim. It's nice to be here talking to you about something other than a rezoning application or something. Thank you for the opportunity to give a very brief presentation on how we would go about this plan. And I'll say that, we're a little bit, I approach this a little bit differently, and for those of you in the audience who might not know, I also serve as the city's planning consultant. Wade Trim has been the city's engineer for decades, I think. So I come at this through my own lens, as all of the firms do. And I would say that as I look at the scope of work that we put forward, I think I want to stress kind of three different pieces. You know, number one, and we haven't talked about this very much, but talking about programming is such a key part of a recreation plan, but particularly of a park and recreation plan for this city. For landlocked cities that often face financial challenges, you know, that programming and what kind of offerings do we have is such a key part of the quality of life for the people that live here. And to be able to go out and talk to people about, you know, not just what do you want now, what do you think you want in the future, and to the extent that we can hone in on those short-term things that might be cheap and easy and dirty, and we have local partners, whether it's the schools, whether it's the county, whether it's whether it's Taylor, whether it's Dearborn. You know, there are often opportunities to partner in ways that are much less financially challenging when we're just talking about programming, instead of just always thinking, you know, big facilities. The second part I would stress, you know, that we want to focus on is the engagement piece of this. And I know we've got, you know, 5 meetings in there, but I really think that to get a broad input in Dearborn Heights, we need to go to the different parts of the city to have these Recreation Commission meetings so that they're easy for families to come to, that they're easy for seniors to come to. And we're going to come to your neighborhood, and we're going to do a commission meeting there, and we're going to have that open work session there, and we're going to talk to you. We're going to do an online survey for the people that, you know, I know some of you are on the go all the time, you know, that you couldn't give us an hour at a meeting. So we're going to do an online survey as part of what we put forward. And then, you know, I also come at this through the lens of, I sit where you sit in my home community. So I'm an elected official. I understand how hard your job is to get as much input as you can to figure out how to make some really hard decisions sometimes that are financial, that are often very emotional. And I think coming at it with that perspective helps to kind of clarify the choices that you're going to put out there for the community to make. And then the last piece of this is the financial component, you know, and I think all of us, and I'll speak for my colleagues in the profession, that we all have experience going after trust fund grants. You know, we've all written a bunch of park and recreation master plans. That's kind of a standard thing that all of us do. And one of the things that I am always cautious about is I don't want us to narrow our focus just to one set of grants or one funding pot. I think, you know, whether we're talking about the Army Corps of Engineers, whether we're talking about the County Water Resources Commission, there are all sorts of different opportunities that we need to be creative in exploring. I think one of the issues that I look at, and our firm brings, I think, perhaps more intimate knowledge of, is some of the flood control work that's been going on and is being proposed to look at how can we tie those activities to recreational opportunities, how can we tap into those much larger sources of federal dollars to, you know, maybe get a pocket park in a neighborhood that's mostly, you know, green infrastructure, but still provides a neighborhood recreational facility. You know, I think I also bring to this process, you know, my lens as I believe that everybody needs to have a park or a recreational opportunity within a 10-minute walk of their house. You know, I think that is something that we owe to our community to do that. And I think, you know, being creative in how you do that is important. So we've done a bunch of different park and recreation plans for a bunch of different communities. And, you know, in the last 5 years, we've worked doing these things for clients all over the metro area. You know, we did one in Sterling Heights, and the key part of that is they actually went out and did a bond issue for a new recreation center, and that was the piece of that recreation plan, because that's what we heard was the important missing piece there. But there was also a non-motorized transportation component of it. I think a good analogous kind of community is City of Pontiac, which, we did their Parks and Rec plan back in 2013, 2014, when they were in receivership. So they didn't have any money to take care of any of their parks. And it wasn't about necessarily, hey, we're going to add facilities, we're going to add programming. It was looking at opportunities to connect the parks through the transportation system, non-motorized transportation, bike trails, and look at transportation funding as a mechanism to try and realize some of that. So I think that because of, and you all know this better than anybody else, the state doesn't want to give us enough money to actually be, solvent local government anywhere in the state. And so we have to be very creative in how we go about some of this. And some of this is looking out to the community, frankly, to understand where there are opportunities to do some of these things. You might hear, oh, well, that house has been vacant for 10 years. It's a code enforcement problem. Maybe that gets torn down. Maybe that does become a neighborhood pocket park. Maybe that ties into a flood control project or a green infrastructure project. I think some of this really gets sussed out in that community engagement piece, and I think that that's why going to every part of the city during these commission meetings is really important, so that we show this isn't come here and tell us, we're going to come to you and figure out on the ground. If there are a group of people that say, come look at this, you can go out and look at it, the Recreation Commission can go out and look at it, and ultimately I think it informs choices better, and you'll be able to talk to your constituents who say, hey, we had a voice in this and we're happy with how this went.
Thank you. Councilman Abdullah?
So you're pretty familiar with our city, obviously, having worked with the Planning Commission and what have you, and also other work that your company's done with our city. This is my personal belief. I think our city right now, there's a lot of A-level cities around here, as far as the recreation plan. Mm-hmm. I think we're like in the B-C range, okay? I don't think we're at the failure level, because I go to different cities, and we definitely have more parks than a lot of the cities around here. But being that you're very familiar with our particular city, give me an idea, some ideas of what things you have planned. I mean, I know you're very familiar with the golf course, of course, and I know you're very familiar with Canfield, et cetera, et cetera. Give me some of the ideas that you think, and I know you haven't done your research, but some of the ideas that you have planned for our city, or at least possibilities. And also, the same question I've asked before, why Wade Trim and not somebody else? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you know what?
Sure.
You got to be able to sell yourself.
Yeah, of course. I'm an elected official. I should be able to do that anyway, But I think, I think all of us are hesitant to say, hey, these are our plans, because all of us, we're all practitioners, we're all professionals. We don't want to come in and impose a vision on people. But I think one of the things that I look at as a real opportunity that maybe we're not looking at as enough of an opportunity are some of the flood control projects that we've been talking about. And to figure out how recreation can be built into something that you really have to do anyway. How can we do a lot with one thing that you're going to be forced to do? So I think that would be the one thing that I would say is, let's start thinking about these opportunities that people might not directly tie to parks and recreation activities. And then why would you pick me or Wade Trim? I would tell you quite simply, our success as a firm is totally dependent on your success as a city. We are so invested in the city that if something doesn't go right, if you get a B- plan, that's an F plan for us. That is a failure for us. I think that the reason that we've been here as long as we have is because we do feel very much a part of your team, very much feel a part of the community. I feel that the relationships that we have built here over the years are important and valuable. And I think that this is the time where those relationships, you use those to get out into the community to get the better input. So that's why I would select Wade Trim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councilwoman Hicks Clayton.
I just want to, stress the importance of recreation and moving into the next 5 years, because that really, it's not an essential service, but it's vital to quality of life for people. And that's why I fully have always supported recreation, by the way, because I see the impact and heard it from the lips of one of our residents in 2011 that I'll never forget. So with that being said, I appreciate your attention to the ADA accessibility, as well as you mentioned green infrastructure. You mentioned programming, which is really important because I think we are a little outdated and we need to listen to our residents. We need to be, and what you had said about getting out to them in their area, in their neighborhoods. Don't expect them to come to us. We need to go to them and engage them and develop a community-based vision moving forward for the next 5 years. But in particular, whoever is selected, the leveraging of like your Wayne County millage monies for these trust grants and other grants, because, and we did not mention Swapka Park, and we should have. We talk about Warren Valley, which is important, but Swapka Park, we met with those folks. They told us what we were eligible for, but now we have an expired plan. We need to get this up to speed. So I can appreciate that. The only thing that I did not hear was a branding plan. And I think that's going to be an important part of your recreation, is branding the community. And I see this across the state already, where communities they've taken their name and just branded it. There's something distinct about it. Inkster's got their mill, and some places, Port Huron has something else. So again, if we can wrap that into that, that's important to the success of our community. And then that's what I wanted to share with you, is Recreation Commission. Do we have any Recreation Commissioners here this evening? Because I imagine they're part of this conversation, as they should be. Okay. All right, because I think that's really important to include them, because they're going to have to be part of this before it comes to us.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We have Councilman Bazey with a question.
So I wanted to ask you actually what I mentioned earlier about grants before I go to the next question.
I probably should have done more homework and looked up all the grants that we've applied for over the years and given you kind of a scorecard. I can tell you the last park and recreation plan that we finished was for Harrison Township in Macomb County. They were awarded a grant, and I apologize for not being able to tell you the size of the award or what the project was, but we did prepare that for them. I think that is, as I mentioned, everybody that does park and recreation planning has experience writing the DNR grants. I think what we bring to the table is a little bit different in that we're looking beyond just the conventional DNR standard recreation grants at other opportunities, and I think that's one of the things that we have always brought to the table is kind of that broad set of services that includes the ability to go after anything that would come up that would possibly touch something that we wanted to do here.
Thank you very much for your...
Other companies, if they want to address that, if they had experience with grants.
Do you have experience? They've said, I'll give you a couple more minutes and then we're going to move on.
He does.
Thank you. Yes, McKenna has a wealth of experience in grant applications and successful grant applications. There is an example in the proposal of the Village of Farwell, where we received the village received through our grant application over $100,000 in state funding. We too look at not just state MDNR funding, but also foundations and other private entities. Right now, we're working on 3 grants, myself, the City of Ecorse, the City of Walled Lake, and Hamburg Township.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Council Chair.
Do you have a question?
Yes. Actually, for Wade Trim.
We're beyond that at this point. We're just going to make our closing remarks.
Madam Chair, can we get a copy of the submittals from the 3 of them? Can we
here.
review those?
These are the copies.
No, these are the recreation samples from their, I'm talking about what were submitted to you.
Wade Trim did bring a copy, and everybody should have one. I put one.
We received it.
Wade Trim does, but the other
I don't
companies,
have
I
it.
have the one copy.
That's Wade Trim. Okay.
I don't have
In
one.
the email.
You can make it, he
Sure.
can get copies made.
You know what?
Here, we can get them via...
You know what? We'll get it to our council secretary, and she can make us copies during the week.
Okay. So we have all three, because I don't have them. I don't have them.
They only had one of each, and here, I'll have Lynn make copies of the, he just get that one.
Put them in your mailboxes.
Thank you.
That would be perfect.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wenzel.
I have a quick statement here. I hope we, whoever we pick takes into consideration the school district recreation assets that they have. We don't want to be redundant and 2 blocks away have something, you know. And also, our biggest probably one-time investment the city's ever made, the Warren Valley Golf Course. It's always, at the end of the meeting, oh yeah, what about the Warren Valley Golf Course? This is something that's a big investment. We need to really utilize that because it's an untapped resource. And it's been months and months, we've been asking for a monthly update on this Warren Valley Golf Course. I haven't gotten anything. I don't know if anybody else has. I don't know whose responsibility, the Recreation Department's responsibility to give us an update on how things are going financially, structurally, you know, everything. I mean, we're sitting here, we don't know anything about it. You mentioned banquets. I was told that they're booked solid on banquets.
Over the weekends, I'm looking at more stuff during the week.
Yeah, during the week, okay. I mean, that's stuff we don't know any of that, and it's like I said, it's our biggest investment we ever made in the city, one-time investment. And heard some good things from all of you, and good luck to all three of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to make a statement, too. Also, growing up in Dearborn Heights, I played at what was the former municipal park, which has now been renamed Van Houten. The neighborhood I grew up in had small lots, and it still does. The park is somewhere I went to go play, socialize, and I have some of my fondest memories in the neighborhood park. Our park and recreation plan is very important for our community, and I'm glad that we got a plan in order now. We're going to be working on this because we do need it. Councilman Abdullah?
The only thing I'd like to tell all 3 organizations that you guys did a pretty good job. But I can tell you my personal opinion, and I'm very blunt. I think the recreation department as a whole has failed our city. I think they've done an okay job. But my level of is excellence, and what I want you guys all to try to focus on is on excellence. Like right now, the recreation's changed obviously over the years, and we got to make sure that you guys have a proposal that's changed with it. But it's got to be something that, you know, when residents come in to move into our area, they ask about the schools, they ask about the safety, and then they ask about the type of rec programs that we've got here. And if we're going to continue to have just generic programs, that's not going to be enough. So I'm going to be looking for something very innovative, and that blends in with the type, you know, with the residents that we have in our great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the... Okay, at this time, we're going to end our study session.